Salam alaikum and welcome to this week's episode of Bruffy's UAE Rugby Wrap. We have some top of the table clashes to go through. We'll look at the West Asia Prem, Div 1 and Div 2, and then take a look at the quarterfinals coming up. Let's get the show started.
Bring the fight on the sky, pushing boundaries, breaking rules, and holding back for the love of the game. We stay on track.
All right, welcome to this week's show. We're going to actually kick off, and we're going to bring in a guest straight away today. He is not just any guest; he is the man, the myth, the legend of FFP Sports. He brings us all our live rugby from the RCC YouTube channel every week, and he's in charge of that. So he watches as much, if not more, rugby than me. Welcome, Grant. Goes to the show. I'm not going to try and pronounce your name correctly.
Show, mate. It's great to be on Bruffy's podcast. My virgin appearance, huh?
Yeah. I must also mention that Grant does produce the podcast. So as much as he is a guest this week, he takes part in it every week. So the poor fella, I've let him come out from behind the scenes today.
Yeah. It's face for radio, is that what they say?
Yeah. I don't know why I video it either. All right. So we'll talk about the West Asia Premiership first. We'll get on with the top of the table clash. We had Bahrain versus Exiles in Bahrain. It was a really interesting game on how things developed. Bahrain obviously won the game 41-32, even though Bahrain tried to put their socials saying Exiles only got 25. We do have it as 32. It was an interesting game because Exiles really took control midway through the first half, trying to using a man advantage to score a few points, took in a halftime lead. Then things kind of unraveled for them in the second half. How do you see it?
Honestly, pretty much exactly like that. I think it was more that psychological side of it, and you see in sports where it's just the travel. The whole Bahrain's got this amazing facility, the home ground, and you just kind of, when you go there, you've got this energy to you want to put your best foot forward. You want to smash it, hit it up, and Exiles just kind of took their opportunities when they had them. Bahrain wasn't able to finish off for me, and they gave them that edge for most of the game, and obviously that red card that kicked in there as well. Probably Exiles thought, okay, now we've got it from here. And then it was just a quick try, or actually multiple tries, wasn't it, at the end? And then the last 10, 15, that completely changed the game. I actually thought up until that point, Exiles should just roll over the top, considering how close the battle's been throughout the game. And then, Bahrain just red wall flood.
I thought the same thing when the Exiles scored that try just after half time. I was like, Bahrain are going to be a man down for the rest of the game. It's going to be so tough for them to get back. The Exiles pack was just like, the scrum was quite dominant. They were really pushing those boys around, but they just let go of that at the wrong time. And then Bahrain managed to power over the top. I know Lindsay Gibson, he was the man who got the red card. Now it was 2 yellows, but Lindsay's a friend of the show. He was on a couple of weeks ago. He got himself a rest, but the Exiles, really slow start for them. Bahrain got away early. They came back into it, fought their way back in, and you do see this from the Exiles quite repeatedly. They build themselves into the game, but I do think that travel factor, because I know when you go there, you end up spending a few hours before the game in Bahrain. It's really hard to stick together because you only travel once or twice a season. The UAE clubs really aren't prepared for it. They don't know how to deal with it as well. Like Bahrain and Doha do it every second week. But I think that's one of the big things that gets you when you travel over there. There's a lot of waiting around before the game. You're so pumped up for the game because you're like, yes, we're in Bahrain. They're the big ones. We're going to put on a show. And I think you kind of sap yourself of your own energy.
It was interesting though that like Exiles started off the same way, had probably the last 2 or 3 matches. That slow start, just trying something different, doesn't look like the same team of old. And then they flick and switch and they jump into this mode. I don't know what's going on from your point of view.
I just think their forwards are really good, and their backs are not matching their forward work. I
Mm,
mean, their pack is huge. They do that slow work, and then they've got monsters like Apelli at six, just running huge lines. Their clear outs just that bit more brutal and things like that. So normally it does sap teams' energies, but I
mhm,
tell you what, that red wall just never seems to die, does it? Like Bahrain, they just stick in games,
mm.
even when they don't belong there, and they just keep fighting, and then they can produce some amazing tries as well.
To be honest, I didn't think you feel like there was down to 14. It just felt like there's still 15 on the field when you're watching the match and you're watching the play. And it came really interesting because the same thing happened. The Bahrain Twos took on Amblers, I think it's a couple of weeks back. They were down to 14 as well, and they still came over the top as well. Same kind of attitude, same kind of just same structure, same discipline, and they just rolled through. And I don't know if there's what's going on in Bahrain, but there's a
Yeah.
culture or something there that's keeping them in there like that.
Oh, massively. And I just think, like, we've been talking about it, you and I have been talking about it off camera for quite a while, the phase play.
Mm,
Bahrain's tries are scored off first and second phase a lot of the time. They're
yeah,
not putting big phases together, but they can find a little weakness after the first incident and just break it. Even I think one of their tries, the Exiles absolutely blitzed them in the scrum. Ball was messy, came out backwards,
yeah.
but one's like inside step into an offload off a guy running a support line, and suddenly they were scoring another try. And they seem to be consistently able to do that when they need to.
hmm All the way through that full 80-minute game, right? I think, and Lindsay was talking about
Yeah,
this. He was talking about that full 80-minute performance. So it must be something they drill
yeah,
into their training all the time, like looking for that full 80. That's what keeps them, if they're behind or not, they're still looking to play the same or play with the same intent, that full 80 minutes.
yeah. And everyone always knows kind of what they're doing, even when their backs are against the wall. They go, all
Yeah.
right, let's fall straight back into our systems, and it works. So no, credit to them, 41-32, high scoring game. I mean, they still let in 32 points, so Exiles do come away with a losing bonus point, but it really doesn't matter. I think this will be the table for the rest of the season now. First, second, Exiles are like everyone's beatable, but I think the Hurricanes and even the Quins will be looking to upset Bahrain when they travel. So hopefully they can do that. All right, our next game we're going to look at is Doha versus the Hurricanes. It was closely fought in the first half. The final score was 15-36. Now, Brent, you were commentating this game. Talk me how you did that, because I'm sure you were commentating in Dubai that night as well.
A bit of voodoo magic, my man. No,
Yeah,
yeah. So with the um, future in mind, the aim is to make sure, and we are looking at doing all of WAP for next season, West Asia Premiership, which means there's matches in Doha, there's matches in Bahrain, and there's matches here in Abu Dhabi, and it's quite logistically tough to get enough people down there to film it, let alone to commentate on it. There's only a few people that want to
yeah,
jump on the commentary anyway, and so I just thought this weekend, yeah, we were testing out some tech in the background and working with the operator, how to communicate with the operator so that someone can communicate remotely from
yeah,
anywhere. So essentially, they do it from like New Zealand, South Africa, England, here back in the UAE, and the aim is to basically commentate on live feed, which is what they do on other productions as well, except we don't do it on any budget.
yeah.
So I kind of
I seem
was
to
under a bit
be
of
going
blank
a bit.
just to keep out the echo.
Oh, okay. Did you find it weird because obviously when you're normally with the crowd and stuff like that, it's a bit easier to get the atmosphere and get into the game. Did you find that was a little bit tougher? You feel like you're under that blanket, a little bit quiet, and
Yeah,
you're probably not as into it as like. And it's hard being by yourself doing that, obviously.
it was. In this instance, we had like an operator that didn't have, I didn't have communication with the operator. So they connected me to the stream. I literally just try to see what I could see
I'll
through
just
my stream.
commentate what you can see. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, totally. And it's a bit hard to obviously because it's a low profile, so you couldn't see as well far. You couldn't sit down, get a high profile of the game. But it was a learning
yeah,
experience. As the idea is to tweet things out, see what happens. But it definitely it's food for thought of how we can improve. So by the time next season comes around, we can have the other mate chipping on. You could be in Rugby, I could be in Dubai, and we could be commenting on the game in Doha.
That'd be really cool. All right, so let's talk about the game. It was very close at halftime, I think. Hurricanes went in
15 all.
17-15.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was a 15 all. Doha had managed to score 3 tries, just couldn't convert any. Hurricanes had a little bit bashed, a little bit messy. They weren't getting the counter attack rugby that they're used to. But
Hmm.
then they really came into the fold in the second half. The Hurricanes team, they started going from strength to strength. I think Doha started throwing the ball around a little bit too much, making too many mistakes, and Hurricanes were able to pounce on that.
Yeah, good analysis of that one because I think from the start of the match when they missed that first penalty attempt, it kind of set the way as far as maybe the mentality moving forward. It's just things weren't going to go their way, and like you said, they were very inconsistent for me, especially in that first half. And the Hurricanes, they struggled there too. Lost a lot of complaint. I mean, there was a lot of handling errors in that match. Um, it was windy, yeah. I mean, you can see that from the trees in the background and the flags and stuff like that. But I don't think for the premiership that should have had the effect that it did. Um, and then Doha, for me, they had these two different strategies. Doha were looking for more territory. Canes wanted to keep it in hand, and it didn't really seem to work for either team in the first half. And so that close scoreline, whether it was 15-15 or 15-17, was I think, relatively fair score at the halftime. But then
Yeah,
Hurricanes in the second half, they're just more consistent. They were able to hold the pill. They started to get their heads up, started to break through tackles a little bit easier. You can see when they had the ball in hand, they'll clean rucks. The speed of the back of the ruck, the half was in there so much faster. Doha was really slow, giving Hurricanes time to just settle in and get more defensive. Yeah, and I think that's where Doha really struggled. They'll probably say they were a bit of breathed with another card to Elliot. I might have to ask him about that since he was on the show last
yeah.
week.
Friend of the pod, as we like to say. Yeah, he got his a yellow card. It was just a series of penalties there, wasn't it? And he seemed to feel like it was the odd one out, but it could have gone either way. But yeah, the game probably reflected it, and it does reflect where the sides are in the league. Like Doha's been putting up a little bit of a fight, but
Mm.
they need just not able to hold on with the big boys
Def-
at the top level.
I was going to ask you, fine, for Doha coming back into the Rave and having to do so much travel, usually it's this way. Their home games for me, I would thought I don't know, they seem to battle better. I still because there were so many mistakes still, like the same mistakes that seem to be like that inconsistency. Sorry, they're having on the traveling and having still back at home. I thought they wouldn't be as apparent at the home games. What do you put that down
Yeah,
to?
I just think that maybe the change of personnel because even between last week and this
Mm,
week, there's new guys starting, guys who weren't playing last week, and
yeah.
changes to that squad. I think their best player was number 8 last week, and he was playing in the second row to
Mm,
start with. So you're taking away I'm not saying anything against the other guy, but like if your best player was at number 8 and then you're putting him in the row, you're taking away some of his powers and things like that. And I just think
mm.
a few of the changes that happen because they happen consistently. It's really hard to find that cohesion with the other guys coming in and coming out, and I'm sure they've got issues at training and things like that as well. So
Mm. Yeah.
that's kind of what I put it down to. I just think there's also a bit of a gap in the talent there. Like they don't have as much talent as some of these big UAE teams.
Mm,
And I know Doha, their financial situation is very differently. They have to carry themselves. I think the players have to cover themselves with visas and stuff like that as well when they fly. So
oh
one
yeah.
of the big things when they travel is half the staffers and stuff like that can't come over because it costs them
Mhm.
about 300-400 dirhams just to travel, and that's out of their personal money to go play rugby for an entire
Yeah.
day, like for 2 hours, but lose an entire day. So
You
I
can
think there's a
imagine
bit of
that.
that, but yeah.
I do wonder if Hurricanes are looking a little bit too far forward, looking to maybe some other structures, new structures going to the playoffs. Did you get
Yeah,
from that?
probably, and they probably have to because the way they play against Bahrain and Exiles isn't good enough. Like they were managed to squeak out against the Quins, they managed to squeak out against the Dragons, but they really struggle against those bigger boys, the bigger bodies. They don't have a game plan to kind of go around them or make them move around enough. So they're probably trying a few new things while they can. I know
Mm,
they're working hard. Their coaches are working hard on that, but maybe they're trying out something different. But also, they probably have that issue of some guys work Saturday mornings and things like that. So
yeah.
traveling traveling on the day is really tough for some of the players. So perhaps that's one of the problems.
There's one thing about that game was I thought there would have been or applied a bit more kicking, like kicks and play, but a bit more of a kicking strategy behind them. But they seem to want to just hold on to the ball more so.
Yeah, and I think that's to do with the back three at Hurricanes. They love ball in hand. Those I think they're all part of the UAE squad as well.
Yeah.
And they kind of see like they want the ball in hand. They're very good off their feet and stuff like that, but they just don't have that experience yet to
Mm,
know. All right, if I kick this, I can put pressure on. There will be times when I get to play with it, but it's kind of like, oh yes, I've got the ball. I'm going to try something. I'm
mm,
probably a little bit of that. Oh, we're playing a team I should be able to do something against as well. So
mhm.
there's a lot of that happening as well.
Yeah.
The Quins then now taking on the Sharks. It was not a close game. 52-10 the final score. And it was probably flattered the Sharks at the end. They scored actually a wonderful, awesome try at the end there. Really good offloading and skill with Emosi getting over the line, but that was really the shining light. Quinn's got a real early try, 2-3 minutes in. Sharks took an early penalty, and then the next time they went to score, they actually got timed out of taking the penalty. They had a water boy on the field and stuff like that, so there might have been a bit of confusion there, but it was kind of the epitome of the Sharks season, getting timed out on a penalty. They're just they're good blokes, and their size is fine, but they just don't show up in defense. I
Mm,
mean, they've leaked over 100 points in the last two games, and you just can't be competitive if you can't defend, if you can't tackle, and that seems to be how the Sharks season is going. Even when they played Doha, and won, Doha still managed to put a lot of points on them.
mm,
So that's a real concern for the Sharks moving forward. I know when they first came up at the start of the year, there was a bit of like a huge difference in the level that they were playing. And now, as we're in the back end of the year, they should have adjusted. And these guys know what they're coming up against. They just need to tackle, and they
mm.
just need to stick out and support. The Quins aren't a big team, but they just I think they must have had spiders on them or something like that because they were just breaking lines at will at times, and it was just really hard and just a small inside step, tiny bits of footwork, and Sharks had nothing in defence. So a real concern for them, and it's probably a concern going forward as well because I know recruitment's been tough. I mean, they rely a lot on Emosi, and then Harry's captain now, but they rely a lot on a couple of guys to do a lot of work.
Mhm.
I think they all need to start showing up for each other a bit better. I don't know how you saw the game. I thought it was a mess from scrum to scrum, line out to line out. But how did you see that game?
Yeah, like you said, it was a hard watch. You probably kind of knew that even themselves, the Sharks, they knew the outcome at the end. They probably have a different focus when they go into the match, but it seems to be the same thing you're saying, and you said it during the commentary as well. They on the attack, they always seem to push a pass they don't need to, and that's where it's always fumbling, or it's just coming out of hand, or it's going forward. They're looking for success off the first phase or second phase every time it seems, and then they try and push for that YouTube pass. Um, Possibly because like you said, they haven't got the forwards that they probably need to compete in the Premiership right yet, and that's going to take a couple of years before finding that. But then on defence, like I said, it's not just in the Premiership team; it's in the Division One team. The same things are happening in both teams. They're literally just falling off tackles. It's mind blowing actually, because individually you look on the paper and really good players, high skill sets each. They all seem in both teams they're going up all really high, or they're going in alone. And the first tackler is getting pushed off, and then the second tackler comes in and he's getting pushed off. And so the attackers simply just finning one, finning another. They're not going in as a unit or as a pair when they come in defensively. And then when they are, it just seems like there's not the right, I don't want to say attitude, maybe. It just seems like they're not
Yeah.
like there's no cohesion between the team or between
Yeah,
the
and
defensively and the tackles. So there's space between the two defenders, or one's going and trying to make it, another kind of just watches. And I think that's it was been a continuation in this game as well. You saw the same thing, trying to push the pass and defensively, just too much space. Like I said, a little bit of footwork, and it was a
yeah,
straight
I
through.
agree with that. One of the things I noticed, Sharks put out their team sheet, obviously, and they've got about 6 coaches listed on their team sheet every week.
Mm,
Maybe it's too many mixed messages and players just not fully clear on what they want to do. Maybe there's different messages and stuff coming through, because that's one of the things I was that they've got a lot of coaches, but they seem to be not have enough of a game plan for what they want to do. I think
hmm
I was speaking to someone on the weekend, and they were joking. They're like, "Well, what is the game plan?" And I honestly believe they want to throw the ball around. They want to
mm,
play rugby, but they just don't know where that line is to go, all right, this time I have to hold it, take the contact,
hmm
reset, and then throw it around more. They just think, oh, every pass, everything, as you said, it's got to be, I've got to make that extra pass every single time, instead of going, oh, the defender's up on me, I'm not going to throw it this time. Take it into contact and reset. They just need a little bit of focus on that. And you can see there's a little bit of snarkiness with them.
mm,
They have a go at each other on the field and quite a lot, so they need to calm that down. And again, discipline was a huge issue. I think it was 15 on 12 at one stage, and it could have been 15 on 11 with another high shot.
mm,
Um, like 3 high shots on the trot on attacking players making breaks. Like they could have gone down to 11, but I'm pretty sure the game has like there's a limit to how many guys you're allowed on the field at one stage. So I think Yako might have gone, oh, we might just let this one slide and just call it a penalty. But yeah, discipline.
it
I think four yellows for them again. It's just
yeah. It's tough, and
there's
I do wonder, like they were kind of pushed into the premiership. I don't think I think they admit themselves they weren't quite ready, but they've taken that step up, and it's going to be a learning curve. And I do see in 2 or 3 years' time, I think hopefully next year, actually, hopefully earlier, as the Sharks will be there because they remind me a lot of the Canes, the way they want to play.
yeah,
They want to pass out wide. They want to use their fast boys. They want to use the back three. They got Matt there as well, and he's in the back, and he's been around for a while, playing for the Dragons beforehand. And that's what they seem to want to go to, but they want to go there too soon, or they want to go there
yeah.
every single time.
And if they can keep their, I mean, their pitch needs a little bit of work, but the rest of their facilities and their clubhouse with the restaurant and stuff there, they've got a really nice setup.
Mm.
Once they get
Oh,
their
it's amazing.
pitches sorted, I think they could be a dominant club in the UAE. Like they
100%.
get a bit of money from that club. Like you don't have to travel out to Sevens to train and things like that.
hmm
They're all big pluses for them, but they need to start showing more now to be attracting those players. Because at the moment, if you're a player incoming and you look at all the scores, do you really want to go to the Sharks, or do you want to go to the Hurricanes or Exiles, who are obviously been more successful? I mean,
hmm
Dragons are outside of Dubai as well, so like you kind of picking and choosing. Would I go to the Sharks yet?
hmm
And they need to be, if they are like, I mean, if they were closer games and showing a bit more, you'd be like, yeah, I'll go help them. They look like a good club. Or are you going to go, oh, I'm going to go there and get beaten up every week for a
hmm
couple more years before we do find it? So
Yeah.
it's a catch
I think it's right
22.
though. Where you said like they will be a dominant club if they just hang in there. I think it's not about the athletes they're getting or the players they're getting. It's literally that you're getting beat by so much every week, and it's hard to stay motivated as an individual to, well, one, train, one, actually put your focus into being there and want to be there. Because you're actually seeing that coming through, and this is where I thought about this when I watched the other game. It was the Sharks and the Tigers, and the same thing's
Yeah,
kind of happening there because they're depleted, because the guys who step up to Premiership, that the next team down, their twos, which are in Division One, are having exactly the same kind of issues because they've actually lost their good players, and it looks like their heads downer sometimes. And even they've got
yeah.
the same issue of they're looking lost after the third phase, or they lost down near the line, and it's coming through. And I think it's that same psychological thing that's going on.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's definitely across their club there. I mean, their threes did get a win on the weekend, which pushed
Mm,
them off last place. And thankfully for their threes, because otherwise it would have been last in each of the leagues.
mm,
So, I mean, their threes are kind of saving them a bit here, but yeah, you can see those issues, and I know they have been a step up, but the other thing was they were looking. So the Sharks made the finals or the final in Div 1 the 2 years previous. They lost to the Hurricanes 2 years ago, and then the Hurricanes went up. It was a close-ish game, and then
mm,
they beat the Quins last year. So the goal was always to step up. I mean, they had Dylan Hartley as their director of rugby
mm.
and stuff like that. They were putting the resources into going up. I just don't think they thought it was going to be this hard yet.
I think it's also that side that they're on the right pathway. And for me, I kind of forget about the placement on the ladders in the leagues because they're just, at the moment they just are stretched. And I think it's
Yeah.
just more about working on that culture at the club, going, guys, we're building, we're building, we're building, and we will build over the next 2 years. And I believe they will. They've got the
Oh,
foundations, they got a lot of club members.
I'm with you, and they seem like good lads, so that
Oh, the
helps as
top.
well. They're welcoming boys, so you can't fault that.
Yeah, 100%. They've got
But yeah,
a youth program there as well. So,
yeah, and yeah, the junior tournaments coming through. So no, I do believe they'll be a successful club, but they've got to just remember that for the
mm,
next bit going forward. So
seasons.
they're not panicking, and guys aren't, oh, I can't be bothered with this anymore. They've just got to
Mm,
keep fighting through. Even the Quins were a couple of years ago, we were losing every game in the league, and they're starting
hmm.
to fight back now as well and change
Yep.
that. All right, well, let's move on. We'll wrap. We'll go through Div 1. We'll try and be a bit faster with these these ones. Um,
There's a lot to talk about, to be fair.
yeah, the top of the table clash was Barrel House versus Alain, and it was close early. I can't. I think it was I think he was playing nine for Alain, the bald fella. Geez, he was making line break after line break all night. He was killing it, but their forwards are big forwards, and they don't seem to tire too much. I know there's a big few South African boys there, and they love the contact. And I
Mm.
think it just became too much for Barrel House in the end. They got some good backs, but they just appeared too small and too tired to keep the fight by the end of the game.
Yeah, literally, that was it. Um, the Amblers, that's their go-to, it's their DNA. It's reminds me actually a lot of English rugby. The big guys with thick necks, just literally pounding that ball up and just pounding and pounding, forcing the teams to defend, and make tackles after tackle, 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 tackle. And even though House, they've actually got a pretty sizable forward pack as well. So I was
Yeah,
quite surprised how dominant the Amblers were in the scrums for most of the game. But they, like you said, their attrition was just consistent for 80 minutes. And at some point, you got to give, as a defensive team, making them a tackle to how fit you are, it's going to eventually wear on you. House, they tried and tested from their sevens. They got a great sevens program, they're very successful there. And they tried to apply it here in the 15 because they had to. They had to get the ball out and find opportunities out the back. And they found a couple of successes. Taylor Hamilton from the back, a couple of times, he was a bit more of an individual brilliance, and the ball just didn't quite bounce his way. And then that
yeah.
kind of compounded on top of the whole match where, damn, the ball's not falling my way. And then we're not going to get that forward momentum up front. And then Amblers will just keep doing the same thing, same thing, same thing. So,
Yeah, they,
yeah.
they, they kind of have a playbook, kind of almost similar to Bahrain. Go to what you know, flog it like a dead book. But yeah,
Yeah.
they did it well, and they're doing it well. And obviously, they'll be the team to beat this season. It'll be interesting to see if they do win it, if they'll have to go up to the Prem as well. I know
Mm,
Alain had it happened a few years ago when they had a big influx of players, made it to the Prem, and then all those players got poached
pushed
off
off.
them,
Yeah.
and then they went into the Prem and just couldn't compete at all. So it'd be interesting to see if they do make that jump, because obviously with the Sharks there, I think the Prem does need to keep growing.
Hmm.
But it'll be interesting to see if the winner of, I mean, obviously Barrel House or Alain can go up. Queens can't go up, Exiles can't go up So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that.
It's interesting you say that because for me, the Amblers Division One, it's theirs to lose. I don't
Yeah,
see others coming close, unfortunately, when it comes to this Division One. But then when you're saying that, I also don't see them. I still see them a good step or two below the Sharks. I, s- I don't see it across
yeah,
the entire park, the players. Like they've got these forwards, these 5 or 6 forwards that are just barreling forward, barreling forward, barreling forward. They have the guy FC, um, usually plays 10 for them. He was doing a bit more centre in this match.
yeah.
And then from there, it's really
And
depletes.
FC is the tallest centre I've ever seen in my life. He's about six foot
What?
seven or something like that. He steps
He
one
was
way and loves a skip pass, but no,
throwing
yeah,
dummies all night.
yeah, loves a skip yeah, it's either a dummy or a skip pass from FC. But no, and like that would be the thing that step up and those because the Sharks did that last year. They played a lot of short game. Their forwards barreling through and making their distance for
Mm.
them. But suddenly when they got to the Prem, their forwards weren't doing that, and they were like, "Oh my god, what do we do?"
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if that happens. But again, that's just a hypothetical.
I'll tell
All
you one
right.
last
Well,
thing. Sorry, I got one more for
yeah,
that Barrel House because last season they had a tactic of kicking and they'd always turn teams around. So they're looking for a lot more territory. After the second or third, they'd kick behind, they'd force teams to go back and keep able to run it. And they had a lot of good success. And I feel if there is going to be a team that beats Amblers, it's going to be Barrel House by applying that same tactic. Kicking the ball
yeah,
in behind, turning them around and make them go back, tire them out so
maybe.
the forwards do get to a point they can't have the impact going forward.
Yeah. And no, that'll be interesting to see if that happens. Now, the other games that did happen in Div 1, the Hurricanes hosted the Quins at the Seven Stadium. It was the game from all reports, it wasn't much of a fight. It was uncontested scrums from the start of the game, which is a bit. I, I've got some feelings about it, but we might get into it when it's talking about Austin versus Rough. But yeah, so that score was 5-30. The Quins managed to put the points on, but again, talking to those lads, they didn't get more than 3 or 4 phases, anything happening.
Mm,
Hurricane showed a lot of heart, and there was a lot of young kids playing for them. But I think they're a club at the moment in a bit of trouble because they've got their third grade are quite strong, or their thirds are strong but full of vets, and they're having that complication where the vets don't want to play twos. I think there was talk about their twos forfeiting,
oh,
which but then there's another difficult thing because then the Dragons did that this weekend as well. And I definitely have like the feelings about that. Dragons put a squad of 30 out for Friday night's third grade game, but forfeited their twos game in
mm,
Bahrain. Um, I'm of the belief if you can't put your twos together, your threes don't get to play.
mm,
Just because I don't think it's fair on the twos competition because it can have such a huge impact.
mm,
Giving a team 5 points just so you can play a third grade game. Um, those are my feelings on it, and that's I think Hurricanes did have that belief, which is why they didn't forfeit.
mm.
But yeah, like interesting thing to see from them. But yeah, not a close scoring game in the end. A couple of guys got over. Bradley Stevens scored his first try for the Quins. He's been at the club for about 3 years as a centre, so he was pretty happy. Oh
3 years for a
yeah, I was
centre.
teasing.
Oh,
Like, didn't take me that long as a prop.
yeah, I was going to say.
um, but he says, "Oh, it's because he passes all the time."
Oh,
Yeah, but other games, yeah, we had Tigers versus Sharks, which we already touched on. Sharks not being able to tackle, and the Tigers absolutely blitzing that, winning that 45-7. So a comfortable victory that will put Quins and Tigers up against each other coming up soon. So those were the Div 1 games. In Div 2, Barrel House forfeited to the Shaheen, but that seems to be the way of the comp the second half. That Shaheen, they were just walking through. I think people are worried about guys getting hurt and stuff like that. The Friday night Hurricanes threes hosted Dragons threes, and that was 27-5. The Hurricanes threes are a good team, but they are a predominantly vets team, so that I think there's that kind of understanding that they don't want to play Div 1 anymore against, they just want to have a run around. However, Dylan Armitage, the former England international, is playing for them, so they're not too bad.
It's one of their recalls at the moment. Give it to him.
Yeah. And then Alain hosted the Sharks, and the Sharks obviously they got their second win of the season in the three, so that actually took them off the bottom of the table, so they get to play quarterfinals.
Awesome.
And yeah, and those were, and the Tigers hosted the Quins. It was actually a quite high scoring game. It was 33-26 with the Tigers scoring a late breakaway try to win that game.
Oh, Kenny Manea.
Yeah.
It's really
So
interesting what we say.
yeah, so we see like with those Div 2 teams, it's a really tough competition. I know third grade, like some teams are playing, like we've got Shaheen and the Wanderers, the two top teams. It's their first 15, which probably is not a coincidence. Then you've got the Hurricanes, the Dragons, and the Quins and the Sharks. It's all their third teams.
Mm.
Tigers, Barrel House, and Alain, it's all their second team. So you just don't know what's happening in that comp at any given moment.
It's one of those things when you look at the whole divisions or the UA rugby at the moment, is that clubs have been stretched out and it's just about growing the club, right? And so I know a lot of the
Yeah,
teams, like you kind of brought up before, are just struggling to put that second or third team together. I mean, even for the Hurricanes, it's literally like you said, their thirds are more their vets. They're not interested in Division One. So the twos at the Canes, they struggle with consistency because the guys either don't want to play Premiership or haven't quite got enough people
yeah,
feeding into that second team because the third team it's a vet, it's not a feeder for the two.
yeah. It's not a feeder upwards. Yeah, and
Mm,
I mean, the other thing is we want as many people playing in the UAE as we
yeah.
can. So we need that Div 2 comp
Hmm.
just to keep guys playing rugby. But it is yeah, we just need to keep up the pressure on it and just let them play. I mean, the Div 2 comp last season, there was no points awarded, and it meant that teams didn't really care. At least it gives those
Yeah.
guys something to fight for, and so I think that's really important.
I think it's been a really good competition this year, much better than previous years, simply because there's a lot of teams in there to start with. Got Keith
Yeah,
Sharjah in, Shaheen's obviously they've come into it as well. Um, it's given their guys exposure, like once those social rugby boys, they want to actually maybe make their club second or premiership team. And as a whole, I've really enjoyed that competition from just more people being involved, more rugby
yeah,
happening in the UAE.
yeah, and it can't ever be bad for like the more that a competition grows, the better off we all are as well.
Oh,
So
100%.
if that twos grows, the West Asia Premiership grows. So it is a bottom feeding area, and you never know. We've had guys who come through. They first started at the Cup. I think Chris McKee, the Quins captain, his first day for the Quins, he played fourths, then thirds, then seconds, then firsts, all in the one game, all in the one day. You just getting
Jeez.
called up.
Okay.
He's cramping pretty bad by the end of it, but yeah, he played all four cops. But all right, so that's a wrap up. So we'll move on into awesome versus rough.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh no, that's pretty rough. Come on.
All right, so the awesome of this week, Bahrain getting it. They get a mention. Awesome, a man down, coming over the top of Exiles, showing their grit. They get it. Rogasanyo, Sunny Nasabo for the Quins. He got a hat trick against the Sharks, so he gets a shout out for that's awesome this week. The Sharks threes, I'll give them a shout out because they jumped off the bottom of the ladder and got another win, so that's really good for them. Tigers getting a good win, and everybody who played rugby this weekend, you are awesome, and I love you. We'll talk about quick. We'll move on to that's a bit rough. Lindsay Gibson, friend of the pod, you get a shout out for getting a red card. I know it was two yellows, but it's still we talked about discipline with you, and that kind of hurt your team a bit. Managed to get through it. Sharks ones, four yellows. Discipline's a real problem. High tackling, it's just not good enough. And you also get that's a bit rough for getting another 50 points put against you. Dragons, you get that's pretty rough for forfeiting the twos, but putting a threes team out. I'm not real happy with that. That's obviously just my point of view on it, but not a great thing. And then we'll see what happens with that. So that no specific person or player for that's rough this week. But that's that segment. That's awesome versus rough.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh no, that's pretty rough. Come on.
All right, so we'll have a look at how the tables are. I mean, the West Asia Premiership has got a couple more rounds, but at the moment, nothing changed this weekend. Bahrain stay on top and they stay undefeated, followed by the Exiles. The Hurricanes stay up there. They're actually tied on wins now with the Exiles, but Exiles do have a game in hand. The Quins solidifying fourth spot, getting a bonus point over the Sharks. So that might keep the Dragons at bay a little bit longer. That points difference really might hurt the Dragons later. And Doha and Sharks rounding that off. All right, in Div 2, there was a few changes right in the middle of the table. Division 2. The Sharks jumped off the bottom of the ladder. They actually ended up coming a seventh. Sorry about the numbers. This is my mistake. I had to make some changes down the side there, but we've finished with the Shaheen tops the lot, but they haven't played in a while. Wanderers, then Hurricanes, Tigers, Quins finish fifth, Alain sixth, Sharks seventh, Barrel House eighth, which is probably the worst spot for the quarters because then you have to play Shaheen in the finals. So it's almost like ninth spot anyway. And now we'll look at the Div 1 table going in just before the. So this is how the table will finish for the season. Alain has topped the league, but closely followed by the Exiles too. So they both got the same amount of wins, just a huge difference in bonus points there. Barrel House placed third. The Abu Dhabi Harlequins kept their fourth spot. Tigers and Bahrain are fifth and sixth. The Hurricanes and then the Dragons finish out the eighth with the Dubai Sharks. Second grade season is over. All right. So those are the league tables. We're going to move on to the fixtures. So we'll look at the West Asia Premiership fixtures first. We've got three big games happening in the capital. We've got Abu Dhabi taking on the Exiles. That'll be at 7 p.m. From Zayed Sports City. The Dragons are taking on the Sharks. I believe that'll be at the 7 Stadium. And Bahrain is hosting the Hurricanes. Hurricanes traveling twice in 2 weeks internationally. That could take its toll. But all these games are all live streamed this weekend. So you can catch them on the RCC channel, or the Bahrain one will be on through their channel, but all brought to you by FSP Sports. So catch all that West Asia Premiership on the YouTube. All right, so we'll move on to the Div 1 fixtures. So these are quarterfinals now. So it'd be first versus eighth, second, seventh, third, sixth, and fourth, fifth. Alain hosts the Dragons in Alain. Dubai Exiles host the Hurricanes at the 7 Stadium. Barrel House will host Bahrain in probably at the Tiger Stadium there. And Abu Dhabi will host the Tigers in Abu Dhabi on Saturday. So those are all the Div 1 quarterfinals matchups. In Div 2, we have UAE Shaheen versus Barrel House. Then we've got the Sharjah Wanderers hosting the Sharks. Dubai Hurricanes hosting Alain Amblers, and Tigers versus Quins. So it's interesting there, the fourth, fifth matchups. Both Tigers versus Quins, but one is away and one is at home for each of them. If we go back to the Div 1 matchups, we'll have a look at those for a second, and then we'll pick our top three out of those, or we'll just talk about each game really quickly and see who do you think is going to win. All right, so Division 1, we have Alain versus the Dragons. Grant, who have you got in that game?
Yeah, that one you can't go past Amblers the way they're playing at the moment. The forward pack,
Yeah.
the dominance. I think it'll
And
be one of those big scoring games, home advantage as well.
yeah, I think first versus eighth, it'd be very hard to go go with the eighth place team.
Yeah.
In second place, we have Exiles versus Hurricanes. Now, Exiles ones are playing away in Abu Dhabi, so that may hinder them a bit. But Hurricanes ones are also playing away in Bahrain, so both teams will be their proper second grade teams. Who you got?
For this one here, I'm picking Exiles. Again, just more the inconsistency from the Hurricanes. So it's going to be one of those things when who shows up on the week, where the Exiles probably have more cohesion throughout the season. So I should expect them to. I think it'd be a little bit closer, probably only about 7 to 10 points in it. But I see it going that way. The Exiles. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're both played on the same day as their first grade teams, I can see the Exiles getting over the line, but it'll be much tougher for them
Mm.
rather than the Friday Saturday combinations they've had recently. So I'd be looking at that if I was the clubs, making sure that their first and seconds play on the same day.
What points difference have you got?
I'm going to say Exiles by 7 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in third place, we've got Barrel House versus Bahrain. I know Bahrain are having to fly out for that one. Their first grade will be hosting at home as well. They've had some troubles flying. Um, I'm backing Barrel House. But again, I think it'll be a close game. I just think Barrel House's backs will be too good for Bahrain's backs in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that 15. He's a gun. I think he's going to get Barrel House over the line. But again, I think it'll be close. I'm going to say Barrel House by 5 points.
This for me is the match of the quarterfinals. To be honest, I think this is going to be the closest one amongst them all, and because what we've seen from Bahrain, what we've seen from Barrel House, and then Amblers, like me, that's actually the top three. And Bahrain, when they've got their team on, like I said, they've got this psychology behind them that they can play for 80 minutes and they can dig it out whether they've got 14, 13, or 15 players on the field. So I expect this to be real close. I'm expecting it to be 3 points. Oof. Honestly, I could flip a
Yeah.
coin on this.
Who are you going?
I'm going to go Barrel House by 4.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, all right. And the last game, and what I think was going to be the game around was fourth versus fifth, Harlequins versus Tigers. I think it's going to be a close game. The Tigers have the benefit of it being their first 15. Harlequins, obviously, their first grade will be playing straight after against the Exiles, so they won't be letting any boys play down because that's a big game against the Exiles for them. So I think that will be a very hotly contested game, and I think it's really tough to call. I'm going to say the Quins because I am a Quin,
Yeah.
because I can't not. But Tigers have always given the Quins a bit of hassle, and the game's always got a bit of fire. So I'm going to say the Quins by 9.
Hmm. This is definitely one of those games that who shows up on the day. Like throughout the season, you've seen these kind of mixed bags of results between two. So yeah, um, based on I haven't seen enough of the Quins over the entire season, but based on this weekend's game, the way the Tigers were playing, the way their attacking structures came together. I know it was against the Sharks, and the Sharks weren't defending as well, but it was also they're running some really good angles. They had some really good cohesion. I think what's going to be the key here is discipline. So if Tigers remain disciplined, I think they have it by 5. If they don't, I think the Quins win it by. Actually, I think it could be a blowout. To be honest, I think it could be 10 plus 12.
And it could be the end of the season for one of those two teams. So coming fourth and fifth
Yeah,
is always tough. A few teams below you, but that is the way it rumbles. All right.
it
So
is.
we're not going to go any. We'll leave the Div 2 alone because I think it's up other than the Shaheen game. It's quite hard to pick. It's who shows up on the day. We'll just give a quick tip. So I've got Shaheen by, I don't know, by 6 tries. What about you?
If that game even goes ahead, I don't
Yeah,
think the
if it
game's
goes,
going ahead.
that's fair enough. It's always a shame to forfeit a quarterfinal. Then I've got who's that? I've got Sharjah Wanderers. I think they're gonna. I think they'll put the Sharks to the sword.
Yep.
Sharjah Wanderers. And they've been playing pretty well. Got some really high scoring games. I think they're going to win this by 25 plus.
I was going 20 plus. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't
Simple.
think that's good. Then we've got the Hurricanes hosting Alain. The Hurricanes thirds team with Alain's two ones playing. I just don't think Alain's got enough depth there. I'm going to say the Hurricanes also by about 20.
Yep. I had to buy 15 plus.
Yeah, and last one was the Tigers Quins. This game could go either way. Obviously, they played this weekend and the Tigers took it out by a try. So, look, hard to say for me, but I think the Tigers might take this one out as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking that again. This is definitely the game of the quarterfinals for Division 2. But yeah, I would say it's going to be close. Definitely within 7. But I would say, if anything, again, probably by 3, actually. I think the
Yeah.
Tigers by 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right. Well, that is all the time we have for this week's show. I'd like to thank Grant for joining us and having a good chat this week. So thank you very much for being on
Always
and
a
your
pleasure, mate.
analysis. And we will see you all again next week. Masalama.